Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Not a lot of bells and whistles here. This is pretty bare bones, down to earth. It's Buddhism 101. And if it's of benefit, that makes us very happy. And that's our intention, is to benefit whoever is with us, wherever you are, whenever you are. Welcome. And as always, we warmly invite you, the listener, to submit questions, comments, anything you'd like. So it's nice if this is interactive. Again, this is for you, the viewer, so please take advantage of this if it's of benefit. So tonight we have Tal with us, a beginning student, and he brings his beginner's mind and a lot of great questions usually. So we're just going to dive in with no particular agenda, but Tal has been doing his meditations now for at least several months, and let's see what's going on. So let's check in. Tal, you have any questions tonight? Or maybe you could tell me briefly how your practice has been going.
My practice has been going well. I've been enjoying, in the past, I've actually been frustrated by some level of lack of concentration, but I realized that in doing that, this is actually part of the practice. So I've been enjoying when I've gotten lost in thought and then realized it, I've been catching it and kind of bringing myself back to the breath. So I've actually enjoyed that whole aspect of it. What I would like to get better at, because observing the thoughts are actually very joyful. Like I was seeing what else is going on in my mind. But how do I get back to just, I guess it's pretty simple in some ways, but what are some techniques to get back to the breath, or to catch yourself faster when you're lost in thought? Or
well, if you're on the edge of the Grand Canyon, you're going to catch yourself if you start to lose if you get dizzy or you start to lose your balance, right? The precipice of the mind is what we're dealing with here, and we don't seem to bring the same sense of urgency to it. This is why actually meditation in the Buddhist world, in the Buddhist context, is predicated on a really deep embracing of the basic root notions of the existential dilemma of being a samsaric being. In other words, it's really continually coming back to this notion of what is suffering that the Buddha talked about. And again, an imperfectly translated word, but what does that mean? What does it mean to oneself? What are the implications? And where is my life heading? These are the kind of questions that actually really inform and help our meditation get more on point. Meditation is not just a technique. It's not just something that we just do to, as you said, use the word, to get more enjoyment into our life. It's to cut through. It's to cut through our fundamental self-delusion, our fundamental, we use the word ignorance, which means we don't see things properly or accurately. We have some approximation of seeing things accurately. We usually pride ourselves on thinking that we see things pretty accurately through our own lens, but it's usually pretty tainted and sort of very relativistic. It's not a really, usually for most of us, it's not a really deep seeing of how things are. It's through all these filters. It's, as we've said before, it's our filter of our gender, it's our filter of our culture, it's our filter of being 21st century beings. It's all these things that we self-identify with, that we cherish, that we wholeheartedly buy into, hook, line, and sinker. And we don't even realize that those are the very things that separate us from seeing really deeply, really deeply. These are all superficial things. So I think my first response to your question would be, based on what you were saying, how do you get back to authentic practice? It's to abandon the enjoyment that you are indulging in, which I know I'm telling you exactly what you don't want to hear. And it's intentional to kind of pull the rug out from under you, because any halfway decent teacher worth his or her salt needs to do this. We need to continually pull the rug out from under the student for a very good reason, out of caring and kindness for you, because in this case, we're not here to enjoy. It's fine if we enjoy meditation. I mean, it's nice, and it's actually a good thing, because we're supposed to have, one of the paramitas is enthusiastic perseverance. We bring some enthusiasm to our practice, but there's different ways to have enthusiasm. As I was saying, it may sound very strange to a lot of people's ears to think, oh, I'm going to get enthusiastic because I'm going to contemplate suffering and my demise, my ultimate having to leave the world and everything I cherish behind. But it is a fire that is actually lit under us that can propel us forward. So I'm not knocking the notion of enjoying your practice. It's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not, but we have to be a little bit careful, because there's a lot of subtle little sort of traps that can befall seasoned, experienced meditators, much less sort of novices. If we think that the feedback or the criteria of if I'm on track or not is whether it's an enjoyable experience, meditation's not necessarily always enjoyable, and doesn't need to be, let's say, productive. Meditation, actually, when we talk about the middle way, the middle path, it's a very broad middle. It's not a narrow middle, just a line in the middle, and then everything's to each side. It's actually the notion of Mahayana, the wide journey, the broad journey, is that there's a nice spaciousness. But the idea is, this is challenging, this is hard, so bear with me, but it's beyond good, it's beyond bad, it's beyond any conceptualized notion of how it is. That's really hard. It sounds easy. The words can just come out of my mouth and into your ears. But the reality of the actual experience is different. It's really different. Now, at this stage of things, for beginning meditators, there's really principally one main thing that we're trying to do, and that is train our mental muscles to stay on track, to watch the straying mind, the mind that we use the word monkey mind, the mind that flits around, that is where the senses are drawn and attracted to different things, which lead to different evaluations in our mind, different opinions in our mind, different judgments in our mind. And our mind is often running, and we're generating stories, we're generating opinions, judgments, and what we call elaborations. The mind just starts elaborating. And we've lost our simplicity. So the hardest thing to do is to do nothing. The hardest thing to do is to be as simple as possible, which, to use a better word perhaps than simple, is content. Content means we're not trying to do anything other than what's already happening. And it means we're not, again, this is not so easy, but this is the meditative way, is that we start to learn how to not interfere with our own process. In other words, we don't have to keep trying to fix things and improve things and change things. Now, this is a little bit, maybe almost a sophisticated way to talk about this, because most of you that are viewing this video, I'm going to assume, are somewhat beginners. And you could be meditating for years and years and still be a beginner. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all beginners. I'm certainly a beginner too. The notion is we get better at becoming beginners. And so if we keep thinking there's something wrong, you could almost say that's what's wrong in the first place. The idea, again, is just keep coming back to the technique. The technique is observe with a very light touch. And it's really meditation. A lot of this training to become a meditator is to learn to lighten up and not have too heavy a hand in trying to steer it or correct it or fix it. Now, again, easy to say, maybe a little harder to do, but this is the path. We keep learning how to relax the mind in the actual process or act of meditation. Keep relaxing, but don't lose the focus. Don't lose the object, as we usually have been talking about for the last many sessions now of these videos. This video series is we tend to use the breath. So stay with the breath. Now, again, if we keep looking and checking ourselves, am I doing it right or not? That in itself is a distraction. I mean, maybe we could say it's a positive distraction because our intention is good. We're trying to stay on track. But we just do it. Sort of a little bit of, this is going to be paradoxical because I always rail against this, the notion of blind faith. But in some paradoxical sense, a little bit of blind faith goes a long way. Blind faith that I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to trust that this is the right thing to do. There's other times for analyzing, for contemplating, for studying, and doing all that stuff. But when you're on the mat doing your actual meditation for 15, 20 minutes or whatever it is, that's the experiment. It's just doing it and just repeating it. And unfortunately, there's sort of no easy or fast answer. There's no real shortcut. It's doing it and doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. And we often talk about boredom because if we're looking for enjoyment and making it an enjoyable experience, then that really tells us something. There's a clue there.
Well, I think maybe to clarify that, I think the enjoyment is that I was looking in the past, and that's where I was frustrated in the past. So I was looking to fix these things, where now I'm just going with it, and I find myself smiling at the getting lost and then finding it, going back to the breath, and that's where I think I'm finding that enjoyment, where I'm not trying to fight against my thoughts, even though that is the goal. I'm just kind of being and observing those thoughts, and then remembering that I'm trying to be focused on my breath. So going back to it, but kind of smiling that this is all happening and I'm observing it.
Okay, well, that sounds good. That sounds good. It's a long path. And where we are today is not necessarily where we'll be in 6 months or in 6 years, in terms of how we count our sort of achievement or success or whatever. It's a path of, again, I tend to sometimes use some odd words, humility. Ultimately, the sort of supreme cosmic joke here is the irrelevance of ourselves. I'll let you digest that because that sounds a little odd, I think. So I'm just going to leave that hanging in the air and not elaborate on that. But we talked about Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, a great book by Suzuki Roshi, which I recommend to beginning meditators. It's a classic. It's a wonderful, very slim, simple book. But really...
What was the author's name again?
His name was Suzuki Roshi. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. He's, a traditionally trained Japanese Zen master, and he moved to California in the 1960s or something. And then in like late 60s, a lot of California hippies kind of found him, so to speak. And he's a great early teacher of Buddhism in America. But that book is wonderful. It's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. You can get it on Amazon or wherever, a used copy for, $2. It's a great thing. But many great books, many wonderful things. My purpose here, my sort of job is to kind of cut through, distill, and I don't use much, as you've probably seen now, if you've watched a few of these videos, I don't use Dharma jargon. I just want to talk about the essence of the path and the essence of the practice. There's many other great teachers that will give you all kinds of more technical kinds of information. But I'm trying to break this down for people that are just, we're just common folk. We're common folk, and somehow we've encountered or have some connection with this wonderful path of Buddhism that has just amazing insights, amazing wisdom, and amazing tradition, and amazing tools and techniques that we can all use today in this strange technological 21st century that we find ourselves in. But the mind is not changed. All this technology that we surround ourselves and embed or immerse ourselves in, of course, is unprecedented. And we have more distractions perhaps than ever before in human history. But our mind, our fundamental nature of mind, which is what we're working with in the meditation path, the path of meditation, that has not changed. And this is what we work with. We all have pride. We all have jealousy. We all have envy. We all have impatience and frustrations. These are just universal to being a human being. So we work on watching the breath. We allow these thoughts to come and these emotional feelings to come and go, because they do. And by not trying to interfere, shut them out, censor them, or invite them and indulge them, we can find something, let's say, beyond all these things. And this is what we're doing, is trying to learn how to become intimately familiar with the landscape of our mind. And I'm not saying the landscape of thoughts, the landscape of the mind, and the landscape of this notion of me. I am here. I exist. Who exists? Who is here? Who is having this lifetime experience? I have a name. I have certain people that I call my parents or siblings or lovers or enemies. All this stuff. Meditation, we allow that stuff. That stuff's all there. But what is it really? And what's its relationship to ourselves? As the years and decades go by and we stay on this path of meditation, we can start to really get the texture and the real essence of all of this stuff, and start to, as Socrates said, know thyself. Who am I? What the heck am I? Okay, so we're going to pause here. Thank you all. Again, please submit any questions you may have, and we will continue in the next video.